Hello guys, welcome back to another video. I know it's been absolutely forever. I've had just so much going on with my life, but today I'm going to show you how we are going to use some tea light candle wax to make some papers and see-through papers. I will put a link down below of the video where I made specimen slides, and this is kind of what we're going to make here today. But first I'm going to show you how to make these cute little papers. Now, I messed around with different types. I messed around with different colours of tissue paper, napkin paper and single sheet tissue paper to see what I could come up with using stamping and dried flowers for different effects. Now this one here is white tissue paper and a dried flower, and that's the one that we're going to be doing today now that I've played with all of these, because I think this is the one that looks most like a slide and I think it's really cute. So this is an alternative to acetate. I'm going to lay down a nice towel on my work surface because I'm going to be using a craft iron, but you could use a pan on your cooker top and use that as your heat source, or a heat gun, or you could use an oven tray. There's like many methods for heating and melting your wax. I'm going to put down some kitchen roll in case I have any seepage so that it soaks up the wax, and I'm going to be using baking sheets. As you can see, I've done a lot today because I was testing out the different papers, and you need 2 of those. You're also going to need your tissue paper. I'm just using the white tissue paper because it's the one that ends up the most see-through. Some scissors and a dried flower. Now for the dried flower, I'm going to show you this little handy dandy thing. I got this on Amazon and it is a microwave flower press. It only takes like a minute and a half to do your flowers. It comes like this with an elastic band, and if you'd like me to make a video on how to use this, how quick and easy, let me know in the comments below. I've got a link to it in my Amazon store where you could go and buy it if you're somebody that wants to dry flowers and use them a lot in your crafts. I do use a lot of dried flowers in my resin jewellery that I make, so this was a no-brainer for me. You also need a little spray bottle when you use this because you keep the pads damp. So yeah, this is how I'm drying my flowers today. You can use pressed flowers, you can use flowers that you bought online that were already dried, but I'm using pansies from my garden that I pressed today myself, and only took like a minute and a half to press these. This thing is amazing. As you can see, it comes with several layers and these linen sheets, and in my opinion is the best thing I've bought this year. Okay, so that's how I've dried and pressed my flowers. So we're going to be using my freshly pressed pansy. I'm going to cut myself 2 little squares of my white tissue paper. This was just saved from packaging. Now the reason we're going for tissue paper is it's the one that ends up the clearest, like this. If you instead wanted to make like waxy paper for, I don't know, making little bags, this is napkin paper. You can see the difference, it's more frosty. And you can use different colours of tissue paper. The creamy one in the background was a light brown tissue paper, but the white one will be the clearest if you're making a specimen slide. So you want to lay your bit of paper down, your tissue paper, put your flower in the centre, put another piece of tissue paper on top. But if you wanted to use stamps instead of a flower, like I did with this bug one, this is just a stamp on a normal stamping silicone stamp. This one here, your regular ink pad that you use, and you stamp on your first sheet of tissue paper before you put your second one on top of it, so it will seal your stamp in between them. Okay, and the reason you need 2 bits of tissue paper is just to make it more sturdy. So we're going to take a little white tea candle. Now I've done this with various colours as I was trying it out. As you can see, this creamy coloured one I used when I was doing, I need to find it now, this that was the white one, white candle, sorry, that was also white candle. This one here was a creamy candle, but it's hard to tell because it was cream paper, but this was a cream candle. So as you can see, it's very subtle. The difference is barely noticeable. One is slightly cream, one is white. So if you have pastel coloured candles, you could slightly tint your tissue paper with them. I think the pink would be quite nice, which means you could use, I don't know, tea stained coloured candles if you were looking for a grubby look. I used tissue paper in that colour and tried that too. So you're going to take your tea light candle out, chuck away the base. You're going to pull out the wick, chuck that away too. You don't need those things. Now you could break this if you want, but it's much more sensible to use a knife. And you're just going to slice little bits off and scatter it over the entire top of your little bit of tissue paper. Now don't be worried about using too much wax, because you can always catch it on your little baking sheet and it's there for the next one. It's only going to soak into the paper as much as it's going to soak in, but you do need a generous amount of wax. So I'm giving myself a little extra here just to be sure. I just like to sprinkle it across the whole page just to be sure I've got an even coverage. Put on your second baking sheet. Now my little craft iron, because it's a bit lumpy and bumpy, I like to sit it for a second to melt the big chunks before I start moving them around. So I like to melt it down first and then just start moving your melted wax across your entire sheet. Now these little white dots are unwaxed paper, so you want to keep moving your wax about until there are none of them left. Now something I did notice when I was using all the different various papers is that the tissue paper actually works better if you do both sides of it and not just one. Okay, now I'm lifting it off, and you take it apart straight away. You let it cool for a few seconds and then lay it down. Wax is really quick drying. You can see how cute is that. Now I like to turn it over and do the second side, even though the wax soaks all the way through. I don't know, I feel like it makes it just slightly more transparent, giving it a good dousing of wax on both sides. Okay, so I just put a little tiny bit extra. There's still loads on my baking tray, and I'm just going to move that wax around too and just ensure it's nicely coated on both sides. Now this makes really cool paper, and I think I'm going to make a video using it to make seed bags. So putting in the dried flour and making a little bag out of it. Okay, now I'm going to show you here, when you peel them up, wait a second for it to cool down, because if you peel too quickly like this, you separate the layers. If that happens, just chuck it back on, remelt it together. Even though it wasn't completely dried, you just want to be sure it doesn't dry separate. Remelt it together. When you take the sheet off, give it a second to cool, fan it a little bit. Just give it like a few seconds to cool, just so the wax between the layers comes together. And then bend an edge to peel one corner up. Make sure you get both bits of paper and lift it off. Then just waft it around to cool. If you lay it down too quick, it will cause little smooth parts on the back that are shiny from your surface. But if you just give it a few seconds to cool before laying it down, that doesn't happen. And then trim it to size. Absolutely perfect. And look at that, you've got a little specimen slide waiting to be used. Now, I'm not just going to show you this technique and then not make anything with it. I'm going to make a specimen slide with you, and we're going to see how we can adhere waxy paper to other papers, because I was thinking about this and it's waxy, so it's going to repel glue. It's not going to be very good with double-sided tape. So I figured hot glue. Hot glue should adhere. So we're going to try this out together. I'm going to quickly make a little specimen slide here. Now, you've seen me make these before, so I'm just going to speed this up and whiz through it, because, you know, it's kind of boring to watch me do something I've already done in a previous video. If you want to watch me make a specimen slide, I will link the video below. Go and watch that one. It's pretty much the exact same process, only I'm just making it slightly bigger. So I'm just going to whiz through this because it's kind of boring to me when I've already done a project. So I've just taken recycled card and I'm just cutting out my slide shape. This one already had a little half circle cut out the edge that I thought was kind of cool. And I'm just measuring a border that is smaller than my little slide so that I've got an area to glue it in. And like an idiot, I'm drawing on the good side of the card, not on the back. So later on I have to rub this out. But you know, I figured you guys probably make the same mistake as me. So now you know, draw on the back of your card. You won't have to rub it out later. See, I've left myself a little space. So I'm just going to make the second side of my card and cut it out. Yes, it moved. I saw that it moved, and now it makes sense as to why my things didn't line up properly. This is what happens when you make something half-assed or half-hearted. I just wanted to make something so that I could adhere my slide to it to see how we could adhere the waxy paper if we were going to make it. And I should have spent more time actually caring about the slide that I was making. See, it doesn't fit. Like, I was like, how? I just drew around it. I can see I moved it. Okay, I'm just going to trim that ever so slightly, just to get it to look less catastrophic. There we go, that's a word. And this is when I realised that I had drawn on the wrong side of my card. So at this point, this is completely pointless, because in a minute I'm going to actually mess around using the wax on the brown paper to see what effect that had on brown card. I went off to find a pencil or something. I don't know what I'm doing. Clearly went on a holiday or something. Forgot I was filming and just was like, you know what, see ya, cheerio. Oh, and I'm back. It was an eraser. I remember now, I could not find one anywhere, so I stole this from one of my children. It's mine now, they're not getting it back, and it has a unicorn on it, so it's my rubber now. So yeah, I'm adding some staining to my card. I'm going to glue this in. So normally my glue gun works great, but for some reason today it decided to be a little bitch. Not gonna lie, it was being temperamental as hell. It's not that it wasn't switched on long enough. I don't know what was going on. It's just like, nope, I'm not going to give you this glue. So it works this time, this little first time, and I'm like, yeah, this is going well. This is good. And it's about here it starts to, yeah, I stuck my finger to the glue. Whatever. It's about here that it's like, yeah, I don't want to give you glue. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I was starting to get frustrated. Now, this should have been, a forewarning for me that my glue gun was not going to like me trying to glue a large space, i.e. the two pieces of the slide together. But it's okay, because hot glue is activated by heat, and it gave me a chance to try out the wax on the brown card. As you're about to see, I'm going to fight with my glue gun. And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you not giving me glue? And then it gave me a big splodge that I had to try and spread out. And then it went back to not giving me any. And it's not that I'd ran out of glue stick. You can clearly see it sticking out the top. So as I was struggling with this and it took so long, obviously my glue is cooling down and it's not going to stick very well. It was getting cooler by the second. And I don't know what was wrong with it. It'll probably be fine next time I use it, just to prove me to be a liar. So it cooled down quite a lot. So by the time I went to move this around, I didn't have any of the usual few seconds to be able to move it. And as you can see, it stuck straight away and didn't stick in some places. And I got really annoyed. Look, it's not even in any kind of way. So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try the wax on the brown card. Let's see what it does to that, because I can also reactivate this hot glue and move it. So it's like, this is not a catastrophe. This is a moment for playing with testing stuff out. It's a learning curve. So it pulls all that stuff back over, and I'm like, there's wax on the paper. I'll just let it do its thing and see what happens. I'm curious. It might make the whole thing look really aged and cool. But I'm also heating up the hot glue, which means I can now move my little slide around and get it more centered. And peel this bit open, because the hot glue is now hot again, and I can just make everything flatter. So if you have a hot glue catastrophe and you like this waxy look, have no fear. Heat it up on the paper you already use. If you don't like the waxy look, get new baking sheets with no wax on it, and then iron it, and you'll reactivate your hot glue and be able to move it around and spread it out nice and thin without getting wax all over it. But I decided I kind of dig this look. Look, it looks old and musty, so I'm going to turn it over and try and get residue wax on the other side too. It looks like it's been in someone's basement for a decade, or maybe for 50 years, and it's all grungy and greasy and oily. It just looks kind of cool. Look at it. Plus, I noticed that it soaks really well into the brown paper, so it does not feel waxy on the card. So even though the slide is really waxy and hard to get things to stick to it, that's not the case for the card. It just leaves it with greasy spots, as you're about to see, because I decided that I'm going to stamp on it. Although using this colour was kind of pointless for this, as I realised you can't even see it. So I was just like, meh, whatever. I'm going to trim down the bits that did not match up, because even though I drew around one, I for some reason can never get anything the same size. So I'm just going to hide the evidence of my flaws and cut them off and pretend that it never happened. I'm going to use a punch to try and get that curve, because I, for whatever reason, cannot cut curves to save my life, and that is why I own so many punches. So there we have a really big sort of basic slide. I'm just going to throw a couple of stamps on it so it looks less tragic and less unloved. But it is kind of cool. I like the grunginess of it. And the slide, I really like the texture of the slide. It is, it's very stable. It's very solid. The wax just really turns the tissue paper into quite substantial paper. And I was thinking, with this technique, you could lay down some napkin paper, put a whole bunch of dried flowers and little crunched up leaves and maybe little flecks of, I don't know, confetti or something, and then another piece of napkin on top and iron it, and you would have really handmade looking paper that was waxy. That would be kind of cool to turn into little bags. I might do that when I do my seed bag. I'm going to make a video making a wax seed bag, because I've got an idea. You could take the flower this year, dry it, and then when you collect the seeds, make the little bag have the flower in the front and then the seeds inside her for that plant, and you'll always remember what the flowers look like when you go to plant them again. So I might do that in the next video and make some paper with it to see how that turns out. If you think I should do that, leave me a comment below and I will do that for the next video. I'm just chucking on some vintagey looking stamps that are appropriate for a slide, if you haven't noticed. Oh, I wanted to show you my new stamp. This is my it's got nothing to do with what we're doing. It's just cool, and I had to show you because I am a child that has to share the things that they like. If you want that stamp set though, it's down below in my Amazon link storefront. It's where you find everything that is in any of my videos, because I buy everything from Amazon because I'm lazy and I don't like going outside. Okay, so I'm just going to stamp these last parts on. And for something that was kind of an experiment, I guess, kind of thrown together and wasn't so perfect, I have to say this has turned out pretty actually cool. I'm going to put this in the grimoire journal that I'm making because it's the right theme. Now, if I'd been doing this properly and actually had some planning in it, I might have printed off a little acetate sign that said pansy or whatever and put it inside the tissue paper, or you know, just written it on the tissue paper, the type of, oh, that might be cool. You could hand write inside what kind of flower it was and maybe the date before you seal it all up with the wax, and that would just add to the specimen slide. Some leaves in it would be kind of cool too. So yeah, I definitely see me doing more experimentations with this because I really like how it turned out. I mean, look how solid this is. Scrap packaging and some tissue paper. And look at all these that I've got left over to play with now. That was dried flowers. That was stamped. That was more dried flowers. That was the dried flowers on the brownie colour tissue paper. More dried flower. And this was just a single sheet of printed tissue paper. It's just kind of cool, and I thought you could use it as a background on other parts. And the bee that's on the desk that I never showed you is just a printed tissue paper too. But this turned out really cool. Tell me what you think, and if you're going to try this method or if you prefer the acetate, and I will catch you in the next video.